click on the bottom right corner, and then click on the bottom left corner. I'm gonna hold it. What I'm gonna do now is enable the layer for the snowboarder. I'm gonna click G, Command Option G on the back. Then I'm gonna enable the layer right above that, and I'm just gonna make a selection around the snowboarder. So I'm gonna click on the quick selection time at this moment. If you select an area like this part here that is obviously not gonna be part of the selection, I'm gonna hold Alt. Okay, now that I have the selection active around the snowboarder, I'm gonna select that top layer, both. And they can be in different groups and they can be separated, so that allows us to keep those two layers together. What I'm going to do now is press Ctrl T, Command C to transform. Oh, that's Command 0 in the back. For the bird's eye view that allows you to see all four corner handles. Then I'm going to click and drag on this one here to scale it down black, and I'm going to paint on that layer mask of the sky here. And I'm not going to take the time to do so now. I will do that after the tutorial and you can see the final image, but I'm just going to go around the entire image and just make sure that everything is masked out accordingly. And in most of these areas, everything seems to be okay. I know we got to work on this area here, and like I said, I'll do that after I'm done with the tutorial and you can see my final result. But for now, we'll just leave it as is. I'm going to press Z on the keyboard, and what we're going to work on now is extra elements that are going to help our composite look much more realistic and much more interesting. So from watermark preview to practice on. So I would recommend you doing that just so that you can have a way to practice and learn. So the first thing I got to do is get rid of the shovel. So I'm going to click on the lasso tool. I'm going to make a selection around the shovel. And as you can see, it's not very accurate. Okay. Then I can hold Shift and Backspace. Or you can go into Edit, Fill to bring up the Fill menu. No. From the ground. So I'm going to go into the channels panel, and I'm going to look for the channel that's got the most contrast. In this case, the blue channel. I'm going to click and drag on the blue channel and drop it here in the new channel icon to fill with the foreground color. You can hold Alt, Backspace, Option, Backspace on X, then Control and those pixels and make the shovel disappear. I'm going to press Control D, Command D on the Mac to deselect, and this is what we're going to work with. The first thing that we need to do is mask out the snow from the ground. So I'm going to go into the channels panel, and I'm going to look for the channel that's got the most contrast. In this case, the blue channel. I'm going to click and drag on the blue channel and drop it here in the new channel icon to fill with the foreground color. You can hold Alt, Backspace, Option, Backspace on X. Now we got to work on this bottom part. There's a feature in Photoshop called Apply Image. If you go into Image, Apply Image, what Apply Image allows you to do is to take an image and apply it onto itself using a blend mode. In this case, select it, and anything that is black will be deselected. So I'm going to drag this one over to the left a little bit. I'm looking at the edges here. And maybe drag this one to the left as well. And press OK. Now, what I'm going to do now is click on the brush tool, select black as my foreground color so I can paint it black. I'm going to increase the size of my brush by clicking on the right bracket key on the keyboard, and I'm just going to paint with black. And again, you don't have to be very accurate. As long as you get close enough, it should be good. And I'm just painting these pixels away, which represent. And once again, I'm going to go into Image, Adjustment, Levels, and darken up some of the darker pixels and brighten up the mid-tones a little bit. And press OK. So this selection looks like it'll work. So I'm going to press Control, Command on the Mac, click on the blue copy icon to make a selection around it. Go back into the Layers panel on the background layer, which is the only layer that we have in this document. Now that the floor is no longer there. Now, it's not a perfect selection, but it's going to work because the color of the floor and the color of the table are very similar colors, and I think we're going to be able to get away with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply click on the layer, select the Move tool, click and drag the layer over onto the other file by hovering. I can even distort it if I want to. Maybe right click on it and choose distort just to get a better perspective of the scene that we're working with. Maybe something like this. And press enter when you're done. Now that we have this file in place, I'm going to press V on the keyboard, right click, fit the screen. Then I'm going to press V on the keyboard, get the move tool, and maybe I can move it around if I need to. And I'm going to click on the new group icon to create a new group. I'm going to click and drag this snow layer in there. I'm going to collapse it, and now it's in that group. Next, I'm going to hold Alt, Option on the Mac, and click. And if you make a mistake, you can press X on the keyboard, and flat, and maybe shape the snow a little bit better. Maybe something like that. In the other image. So you can still work with the previous. So what I'm going to do now is just select one of these elements and bring it over to the plus up here. And we only keep the bright pixels, in this case the snow. Then I'm going to press Control T, Command T to transform. Control 0, Command 0 for bird's eye view, and I'm going to scale this element down. I'm going to press Control 0, Command 0 again to zoom back in, and I'm going to just rotate it and make it fit accordingly. Now in this case, I'm going to flip it horizontally. So right click on it, flip horizontally, and keep rotating it. So maybe something, and rotate this one into position. Maybe right about here or so. But I want this one to be in the back. So I'm going to click and drag this one and place it way back here. And I'm going to press V to select the move tool. And I'm going to move it around just to fit it into position. So maybe something like this. And actually, I just realized that I made it in this area. That's because this element needs to be fit to the vector. So right in between those coming from the right. And so is the light hitting the frame. So you sort of want to match that with the shadows. So the shadows will be on the left side, sort of like here behind the frame. So this is what this is showing. If I were to bring it up to 100%, this is what that looks like. Obviously that's too much, so leave it at about 25% or so. And what I'm going to do now is right above this, and actually let me drag this layer up on top of the group and just continue painting that shadow that's and then change the blend mode to multiply and bring that shadow way down. So maybe something like that. Now the only difference between the final image that you saw in the beginning and this one is that with the final image I took a little more time working with the mask, a little more time placing the elements and moving things around so they fit a little bit better. But these are the techniques that I use to create this effect. If you decide to create an image using this tutorial or any of my tutorials, see it's not very accurate, okay? Then I can hold Shift and Backspace, or you can go into Edit, Fill to bring up the Fill menu. Under Contents, choose Content Aware and press OK. And Photoshop will fill in those pixels and make the shovel disappear. I'm going to press Control D, Command D on the Mac to deselect. And this is what we're going to work with. First thing that we need to do is mask out the snow from the ground. So I'm going to select one of the areas that I know for sure I want to keep, which is all this top part here. Now that I have the selection active, I can fill with white. White is currently my foreground color. To fill with the foreground color, you can hold Alt, Backspace, Option, Backspace on the Mac, then Control D, Command D on the Mac to deselect. Now we gotta, and then I'll just work on the edges in the next step. So I'm going to press OK, and what I'm going to do now is go into Image, Adjustment, Levels, and bring the levels to the right, the dark values to the right, so we have more contrast between the snow and the ground. And remember, we're going to be making a selection. Anything that's white in this screen will be selected, anything that is black will be deselected. So I'm going to drag this one over to the left a little bit. I'm looking at the edges here. And maybe drag this one to the left as well. And you don't have to be very accurate. As long as you get close enough, it should be good. And I'm just holding Shift as I'm clicking on these corner handles to keep the file constrained. The angle's not really matching my scene, so I'm going to right click on it and choose Flip Horizontal. And from here, I can match the scene a keyboard just to get a better perspective of the scene that we're working with. Maybe something like this. And press enter when you're done. Now that we have this file in place, I'm going to press V on the keyboard, right click, fit to screen. Then I'm going to press V on the keyboard to get the move tool, and maybe I can move it around if I need to. And I'm going to click on the new group icon to create a new group. I'm going to click and drag this snow layer in there. I'm going to collapse it, and now it's in that group. Next, I'm going to hold Alt, Option on the Mac, and click on the layer mask icon to create a black layer mask which hides everything. Then, with the brush tool, it can reveal some of that snow. So I'm going to use the bracket keys on the keyboard as I work to increase and decrease the size of my brush. So I'm just painting with white, just bringing in some of that snow. And if you make a mistake, you can press X on the keyboard to paint with black and maybe shape. Maybe something like that. The libraries panel, and I'm going to open up this file here, which is these snow elements that were also downloaded from Adobe Stock. By the way, if you don't have Photoshop CC, you won't have the libraries panel, but you can still download the watermark previews onto your desktop Photoshop as you would. And I'm going to change the blend mode to screen so the black pixels. Here, I'm going to press Ctrl D, Command D on the Mac to deselect, and this is what we're going to work with. The first thing that we need to do is mask out the snow from the ground. So I'm going to go into the Channels panel, and I'm going to look for the channel that's got the most contrast. In this case, it's the blue channel. I'm going to click and drag on the blue channel and drop it here in the new channel icon to fill with the foreground color. You can hold Alt, Backspace, Option, Backspace on the Mac. Then Control and those pixels and make the shovel disappear. I'm going to press Ctrl D, Command D on the Mac to deselect, and this is what we're going to work with. The first thing that we need to do is mask out the snow from the ground. So Mac to deselect. Now we got to work on this bottom part. There's a feature in Photoshop called Apply Image. If you go into Image, Apply Image, what Apply Image allows you to do is to take an image and apply it onto itself using a blend mode. In this case, we're taking the blue copy, applying the screen blend mode onto itself. So notice what happens here on the snow on the edge. It essentially turns white, which is what we want. You could also, of course, apply a multiply blend mode and it'll give you a different result. In this case, I think I'm going to go with screen, and then I'll just work on the edges in the next step. So I'm going to press OK. And what I'm going to do now is go into the Image, Adjustment, Levels, and bring the levels to the right, the dark values to the right, so we have more contrast between the snow and the ground. And remember, we're going to be making a selection. Anything that's white in this screen will be selected. Anything that is black will be deselected. So I'm going to drag this one over to the left a little bit. I'm looking at the edges here. And maybe drag this one to the left as well. And press OK. Now, what I'm going to do now is click on the brush tool, select black as my foreground color so I can paint it black. I'm going to increase the size of my brush by clicking on the right end. You don't have to be very accurate. As long as you get close enough, you should be good. image, adjustment, levels, and darken up some of the darker pixels and brighten up the midtones a little bit, and press OK. So this selection looks like it'll work. So I'm going to press Control, Command on the Mac, click on the blue copy icon to make a selection around it, go back into the Layers panel, on the background layer, which is the only layer that we have in this document now that the floor is no longer there. Now, it's not a perfect selection, but it's going to work because the color of the floor are colors, and I think we're going to be able to get away with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply click on the layer, select the Move tool, click and drag the layer over onto the other file by hovering over the tab, and then holding Shift as I'm clicking on these corner handles to keep the file constrained. The angle is not really matching my scene, so I'm going to right click on it and choose Flip Horizontal, and from here I can match the scene a little better, and I can even distort it if I want to. Maybe right click on it and choose Distort just to get a better perspective of techniques that I use to create this effect. If you decide to create an image using this tutorial or any of my tutorials, see it's not very accurate, okay? Then I can hold Shift and Backspace, or you can go into Edit, Fill to bring up the Fill menu. Under Contents, choose Content Aware and press OK. And Photoshop will fill in those pixels and make the shovel disappear. I'm going to press Ctrl D, Command D on the Mac to deselect. And this is what we're going to work with. The first thing that we need to do is mask out the snow from the ground. So I'm going to go into the Channels panel, and I'm going to look for the channel that's got the most contrast. And for sure, so with the lasso tool selected, I'm just going to click and drag and make a very rough selection of the areas that I know for sure I want to keep, which is all this top part here. Now that I have the selection active, I can fill with white. White is currently my foreground color. To fill with the foreground color, you can hold Alt, Backspace, Option, Backspace on the Mac, then Control D, Command D on the Mac to deselect. Now we gotta, and then I'll just work on the edges in the next step. So I'm gonna press OK, and what I'm gonna do now is go into Image, Adjustment, Levels, and bring the levels to the right, the dark values to the right, so we have more contrast between the snow and the ground. And remember, we're going to be making a selection. Anything that's white in this screen will be selected. Anything that is black will be deselected. So I'm going to drag this one over to the left a little bit. I'm looking at the edges here. And maybe drag this one to the left as well. And you don't have to be very accurate. As long as you get close enough, it should be good. And I'm just cleaning these pixels away with sharper. And once again, I'm going to go into Image, Adjustment, Levels, and darken up some of the darker pixels and brighten up the midtones a little bit. Layer mask icon, and notice now that the floor, I'm going to press Control 0, Command 0 on the Mac, there's the corner handles, and now I'm going to adjust them accordingly. I'm holding Shift as I'm clicking on these corner handles to keep the file constrained. The angle is not really matching my scene, so I'm going to right click on it and choose Flip Horizontal, and from here I can match the scene a little better, and I can even distort it if I want to. Maybe right click on it and choose Distort just to get a better perspective of the scene that we're working with, maybe something like this, and press Enter when you're done. Now that we have this file in place, I'm going to press V on the keyboard, right click, fit to screen, then I'm going to press V on the keyboard to get the Move tool, and maybe I can move it around if I need to. And I'm going to click on the new group icon to create a new group. I'm going to click and drag this snow layer in there. I'm going to collapse it, and now it's in that group. Next, I'm going to hold Alt, Option on the Mac, and click on the layer mask icon to create a black layer mask which hides everything. Then, with the brush tool, I can paint with white on this layer mask to start revealing some of that snow. So I'm going to use the bracket keys on the keyboard as I work to increase and decrease the size of my brush. So I'm just painting with white, just bringing in some of that snow. And if you make a mistake, you can press X on the keyboard to paint with black and maybe shape libraries panel, and I'm going to open up this file here, which is these smell elements that were also downloaded from Adobe Stock. By the way, if you don't have Photoshop CC, you won't have the libraries panel, but you can still download the watermark previews onto your desktop and bring them into Photoshop as you would. And I'm going to change the blend mode to stream, so the black